Ladies and gentlemen, let's stop sugarcoating this. Being nice to everyone constantly, unconditionally, even when it costs you, is not kindness. It's self-destruction. And if no one has told you this before, I'm going to tell you now. Being nice with everyone is killing you. Let's get brutally honest. You're exhausted, aren't you? Not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much for everyone else. You're carrying the emotional load of everyone around you like it's your job. And every time someone asks you to do something, even if it stretches you thin, you smile and say, sure, no problem. Even when your soul is screaming, I can't take one more thing. Why? Because you don't want to disappointed. You don't want to be seen as selfish. You don't want to be the one who lets someone down. And somewhere along the way, you bought into the toxic lie that being a nice person means being endlessly available, endlessly agreeable, and endlessly self-sacrificing. But here's the truth you need to hear. People-pleasing is just fear dressed up as kindness. You're afraid of conflict. You're afraid of being judged. You're afraid that if you finally say a no, they'll stop loving you, stop needing you, or stop including you. But let me ask you, what is all that niceness costing you? It's costing you your time. It's costing you your peace. It's costing you your voice, your dreams, your energy. It's costing you the life you actually want to live. You were not put on this planet to be a doormat. You were not born to spend your days bending over backwards for everyone else's comfort while you suffocate silently under the weight of their expectations. That's not selflessness. That's self-erasure. Let me tell you something that will set you free. It is not your job to keep everyone happy. Everyone happy. Read that again. Say it out loud if you have to. It is not your job to fix everyone's problems, smooth over every tension, or protect everyone from being uncomfortable. Your job is to honor yourself, your truth, your values, your voice. When you say it's out of guilt, when you suppress what you feel to make someone else more comfortable, when you show up for others while abandoning yourself, you are not being nice. You are being afraid. You are letting fear run the show. And it's slowly, quietly killing your spirit. Now, I'm not telling you to become rude or selfish. I'm not saying burn every bridge and cut everyone off. What I'm saying is this. Real kindness begins with honesty. And honesty sometimes sounds like a no. I can't do that. I need space. That doesn't work for me. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for this. You can still be loving and firm. You can still be compassionate and boundaried. People who truly love you, they won't leave when you speak your truth. They'll respect it. The people who only love the version of you that says yes to everything, that's not love. That's convenience. Let them go. When you stop performing for approval and start living from authenticity, everything changes. You reclaim your time. You get clear about your values. You stop apologizing for having needs, boundaries, or opinions. You finally become the kind of person who doesn't just survive her life. She owns it. And you want to know the irony? When you stop being a nice and start being real, you actually become more trustworthy, more respected, more magnetic, because people can feel it when you're operating from truth, not fear. So if you've been shrinking to keep the peace, if you've been saying yes when everything in you says a no, if you've been betraying yourself in the name of being a nice, it's time to stop. Right now, today, this moment, give yourself permission to disappoint people. You will not die from their disapproval, but you will die bit by bit if you keep abandoning yourself. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. A boundary is a complete sentence. So stand up. Speak up. Speak up. That's courage. And when you start showing up for yourself, fully, honestly, unapologetically, your world changes. You stop tolerating what drains you. You start attracting people and opportunities that align with your truth. You stop feeling like you're constantly performing and start living with clarity and power. You take back your time, your voice, your life. So no, being a nice to everyone isn't the goal. Being authentic is. Being aligned is. Being honest is. That's where peace lives. That's where joy lives. That's where freedom begins. You don't have to abandon who you are to be loved. The right people will honor your truth. The wrong ones will fall away. And either way, you win. You don't have to keep bleeding to keep others comfortable. You don't have to shrink so others can feel big. You don't have to keep giving parts of yourself away to be seen, accepted, or enough. You already are enough exactly as you are. So take a deep breath. Look at where in your life you've been nice at the expense of being real and decide today, right now, that you're done abandoning yourself. Because you don't owe anyone a version of you that's killing your spirit just to keep the peace. It's time to come home to yourself. Not with anger, not with blame, but with a quiet, powerful knowing that your needs, your truth, your peace matters. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's strength. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of a life that finally feels like yours. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't feel right, something you don't have time for, something that pulls you away from your priorities, you are saying a no to yourself. You are giving a silent permission slip to the world to walk all over your boundaries, your goals, and your peace. And your peace. And the problem is, you probably don't even realize you're doing it because it's become automatic. Someone asks for a favor. Someone needs your help. Someone wants your time. And before you even think about whether you should, your default answer is, sure, no problem. You're not being polite. You're being programmed. This is what people-pleasing does. It teaches you to value other people's time more than your own. It trains you to be more concerned about someone else's disappointment than your own exhaustion. It rewires your brain to believe that your worth is tied to your usefulness. So the more you do, the more you stretch, the more you agree, the more valuable you feel. But at what cost? When your schedule is packed with obligations you didn't even want to agree to, when your energy is drained because you're constantly taking on things that don't align with your purpose, what's left for you? What happens to your dreams? Your goals? Your rest? You start living your life like a backup dancer in someone else's performance, always showing up, always helping, but never shining. Here's the thing. The world is not going to slow down and ask you if you have enough space in your life before it piles on more. People are going to keep asking. Deadlines are going to keep coming. Events are going to keep filling up your calendar. And if you don't learn how to say a no, not just politely but powerfully, then you will always live at the mercy of other people's agendas. Saying yes all the time is not kindness. It's a boundary issue. Jargon. It's the inability to recognize that your time is sacred, that your energy has limits, that your mental bandwidth is not infinite. And this is where the shift needs to happen. You must stop associating a no with guilt and start associating it with clarity. You are not here to live someone else's version of your life. You are not obligated to carry other people's burdens just because you can, just because you're capable. Doesn't mean it's your responsibility. What would happen if you started being intentional with yes? If you only said it when your whole body agreed, when it actually served you as much as it served them, saying in no creates space, space for rest, space for focus, space for the things that actually light you up instead of wear you down. And that space, that's where you grow. That's where your real power lives. The fear that comes up when you think about saying a no is not about the word itself. It's about what you think it means. You're afraid people will think you're rude. You're afraid they'll be disappointed. You're afraid you'll lose a relationship or opportunity. Do you have a relationship or opportunity? But let's be honest, if your value in someone's life is tied solely to your willingness to always say yes, is that really a relationship you want? Is that a role you want to keep playing? Here's the truth. Strong people have boundaries. Focused people have limits. Successful people say no more than they say yes. You don't get to build the life you want by being available to everyone else's demands 24/7. You build it by protecting your time like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. And every no you give is actually a yes to something better. A yes to your peace, a yes to your health, a yes to your dream, a yes to your damn self. This is about self-respect. When you start acting like your time matters, the world begins to treat it that way too. People start to adjust. They might not like it at first. They might push back. They'll say might push back, but eventually they learn that you are someone who values yourself enough to choose wisely. They learn that when you say yes, you mean it. And that makes your yes even more powerful. You don't need to explain every no. You don't need to justify why you can't make it. You don't need to feel bad for protecting your peace. It's not your job to manage everyone else's emotions. It's emotion. It's your job to manage your life. And that starts with getting honest about what you actually want and what you're no longer willing to sacrifice for the sake of being seen as agreeable. So let this be your wake-up call. If your calendar is full of commitments that drain you, if your day is stacked with things that pull you away from your own path, if your inbox is flooded with favors you didn't want to agree to in the first place, it's time to clean house. It's time to make room for you, not the people pleaser version of you, the real you, the bold, focused, worthy you who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to protect it. Every time you say a no from a place of alignment, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You reclaim your clarity, your focus, your joy. So stop giving away your yes like it's candy. It's not your job to make everyone happy. It's your job to honor your life. You think you're being nice. You think you're being thoughtful, easy to be around, a good person. But deep down, there's a knot in your stomach every time you agree to something you don't want to do. There's a pang of resentment every time you silence your thoughts to avoid friction. And there's this quiet, relentless voice inside you that's starting to ask, when is it my turn? That's the truth about always trying to be nice. It's not that you're too kind. It's that you're too afraid of being judged, afraid of making people uncomfortable, afraid of what might happen if you finally said what you really felt. You're not too nice. You're afraid of conflict. And I get it. Conflict feels risky. It feels threatening. Somewhere along the way, you learned that keeping the peace meant keeping people close, that raising your voice meant risking rejection, that expressing your opinion could make someone leave. So you smiled instead. You nodded. You agreed. And little by little, you buried your own truth under layers of silence and pretend harmony. But what does that silence cost you? Because if we're being honest, you're not at peace. You're holding in your real feelings like a dam about to burst. You rehearse what you should have said on repeat in your head at night. You smile in the moment and cry when you're alone. You've become an expert at reading the room, adjusting, morphing, becoming whatever version of yourself feels safest at the time. In doing that, you've lost touch with who you actually are. That's not kindness. That's self-erasure. You want to know why you feel so burnt out, so anxious, so stuck. It's because you are carrying the emotional labor of other people's reactions. You spend so much time trying to manage how others feel that you've stopped tending to how you feel. You're exhausted from biting your tongue, from tiptoeing, from tolerating things that hurt because you don't want to rock the boat. But here's the truth no one tells you. Conflict isn't the enemy. Inauthenticity is. Avoiding conflict doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. It keeps you trapped in relationships where your needs go unmet. It keeps you playing roles instead of living from your truth. It keeps you living a life that's quiet on the outside but chaotic on the inside. And every time you avoid the hard conversation, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you hold your breath instead of saying no doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Expressing your truth doesn't mean you're difficult. It means you're finally done abandoning yourself for approval. The discomfort you feel around conflict isn't a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're growing. It's a sign that you're growing because it takes guts to say, that doesn't work for me. It takes strength to say, this is how I feel. It takes courage to disappoint someone else in order to stop disappointing yourself. And you know what happens when you finally start facing conflict instead of avoiding it? And you get your power back. You stop carrying everyone else's emotional baggage and start owning your truth. You stop walking on eggshells and start standing on solid ground. You stop fearing what might happen if someone gets upset and start asking what might happen if you keep betraying yourself. Because here's the reality. Not everyone is going to like the real you. Not everyone is going to agree. Some people might pull away. Some people might criticize. But those who truly matter, they'll respect you more. They'll listen more. They'll rise to meet the real you instead of expecting the edited version you've been handing out. Your relationships will get healthier. Your time will get clearer. Your energy will return because you'll no longer be spending it on managing appearances and avoiding tension. You'll be investing it in truth, in purpose, in peace. And isn't that what you're really after? A life where you don't have to pretend, where you can be both kind and honest, both loving and clear, both compassionate and boundaried. That's the freedom you unlock when you stop being afraid of conflict. So the next time you feel yourself shrinking, pausing your truth to preserve someone else's comfort, pause instead and ask, what would I say if I wasn't afraid? And then say it, even if your voice shakes, even if it's messy, even if it's hard. Because every time you speak your truth, you become more of who you are meant to be. Every time you honor what you feel instead of silencing it, you get stronger. You get clearer. You get free. You get free. Being afraid of conflict has stolen enough from you. It's time to take your voice back, not for anyone else, but for the version of you that's been waiting to finally be heard. It's subtle at first. You start saying NS to little things. You offer to stay late. You lend a hand when you're already behind on your own work. You take that call when you really needed silence. You make time for someone else's crisis while yours quietly simmers on the back burner. And you tell yourself it's not a big deal. I'm just being helpful. But over time, those small sacrifices accumulate. And without realizing it, you've placed yourself at the bottom of your own priority list. You're running on fumes, barely holding it together, and wondering why you feel invisible in your own life. That's the lie of being nice. It convinces you that self-sacrifice equals worth. That if you just give enough, show up enough, care enough, people will finally reciprocate. That the love, appreciation, and validation you crave will come back around. But it rarely does, because people don't learn to value you through your overgiving. They learn to expect it. And worse, you start to expect it from yourself. You convince yourself that any moment not spent being productive for someone else is selfish or lazy. And before long, you've become the go-to person for everyone except yourself. When you ignore your needs long enough, your body starts to keep score. Your mind starts to rebel. The headaches, the burnout, the anxiety that flares up out of nowhere, that's not random. That's the physical toll of emotional neglect. That's your inner self screaming, "What about me?" And still, you push through. Still, you keep smiling. Because you've been taught that being kind is the most important thing, that a nice people don't rock the boat, that a good people don't say no. But here's the brutal truth. When you constantly choose others over yourself, you slowly disappear from your own life. And that isn't noble. That isn't love. That's abandonment. And not by anyone else. By you. Let me tell you something. No one is going to walk into your life and hand you back your boundaries. No one is going to say, "Hey, I think you've been doing too much for me. Let me give you some of your time and energy back." That's not how this works. If you want your life to reflect your needs, your voice, your value, you have to be the one to draw the line. You have to stop the cycle of depletion. That starts with permission. Permission to rest. Permission to say no. Permission to not have to explain yourself every time you choose you. Because here's the thing. Your needs matter. Your feelings matter. Your time, your energy, your dreams, they matter just as much as anyone else's. And if you keep waiting for someone else to give you space, you'll wait forever. You have to take it. You have to create it. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. Yes, you might feel guilty. Yes, people might push back. But that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're finally doing it differently. Start small. Say no when you mean no. Turn off your phone when you need space. Cancel plans if your body is screaming for rest. Ask yourself, if I wasn't trying to make everyone else happy, what would I do right now? Then do that. You are not here to live as a side character in your own story. You are not here to be the emotional janitor for everyone else's mess. You are not here to pour yourself out until there's nothing left. You are here to love, to create, to rest, to grow. And none of that is possible when you're constantly running on empty. Somewhere along the way, you internalize the idea that your needs are optional. That other people's comfort is more important than your peace. But let me be clear, that belief is a lie. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't need anyone else's permission to take care of yourself. You just need to decide that you are worth it. OT. Because you are. And here's the magic that happens when you stop abandoning yourself. Your energy shifts. Your presence deepens. You stop running on autopilot and start living with intention. You become a version of yourself that is grounded, clear, unapologetic. And that version of you, that's the one that actually has something to give. That's the one who shows up not out of obligation, but from overflow. Not from guilt, but from strength. So if you're tired, stop. If you're overwhelmed, step back. If you're angry, speak up. If you're scared, slow down. If you're lost, go inward. And most of all, if you've been disappearing from your own life, decide today that you're done. Decide that the cost of abandoning yourself is too high, that you're no longer available for burnout, that you will no longer betray your own needs for the sake of keeping the peace. You are allowed to take care of yourself. You are allowed to choose differently. You are allowed to protect your peace without explanation. That's not selfish. That's sacred. And the moment you believe that, really believe that, is the moment your life starts to change. You deserve to be full. You deserve to be whole. You deserve a life that reflects your truth, your energy, and your boundaries. So reclaim it. One choice, one a no, one quiet moment at a time. Because showing up for yourself isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the foundation of everything good you'll ever build. There is nothing noble about constantly hiding how you really feel. You think that biting your tongue, plastering on a smile, and saying, "It's fine," makes you easy to be around. You think it makes you strong, makes you mature, keeps things peaceful. But what it actually does is slowly erode your spirit from the inside out. Every time you swallow your truth, you lose a piece of your authenticity. Every time you fake a laugh when something hurt, when something disappointed you, when something crossed a line, you build another layer of armor between who you are and who you pretend to be. And eventually, the gap becomes so wide that even you can't remember who you really are underneath it all. This is what happens when you prioritize being liked over being real. You turn into a version of yourself that's curated for comfort, not truth. You don't speak up when someone says something hurtful. You don't admit you're upset when someone disrespects your time or crosses a boundary. You minimize your needs. You dismiss your feelings. You smile when what you really need is to scream or cry or simply say no. That's not kindness. That's emotional self-abandonment. We live in a culture that tells us to just be nice. But niceness without honesty is manipulation. It's a mask we wear to keep people comfortable, to avoid rejection, to feel safe. But safety built on pretending is not real safety. It's a prison. And eventually, that emotional suppression doesn't just go away. It leaks. It comes out as resentment, as passive-aggressive behavior, as snapping at someone you love because you didn't speak your truth to someone who hurt you earlier in the day, as waking up feeling tired even after 8 hours of sleep, as a numbness you can't explain. Pretending you're okay when you're not doesn't protect anyone. It doesn't strengthen relationships. It doesn't keep the peace. It just buries the tension until it explodes in a way that's harder to clean up later. You have to start telling the truth, not to be mean, not to pick fights, but because you matter. Your feelings matter. Your boundaries matter. Your boundaries matter. And when you constantly fake being okay to avoid conflict, you're sending the message to yourself and to the world that your needs are negotiable. They are not. So many people are walking around angry, and they don't even realize it. Not because they're bad people, but because they've been silent for too long. They've spent years being the nice one, the easygoing one, the person who never makes a fuss. And in the process, they've buried frustration, disappointment, sadness, just pushed it all down to keep the world around them calm. But eventually, that storm finds a way out. You are not doing anyone any favors by pretending. The people who love you want to know what's really going on inside you. And if they don't, if they only like you when you're agreeable and silent and easy, then they don't really love you. They love the version of you that makes them comfortable. That's not love. That's performance. You have to be willing to risk being misunderstood. You have to be willing to say, that hurt me, or I don't agree, or I can't show up for you in that way. And not because you want to create distance, but because you want real connection. Real relationships can handle truth. Real intimacy is built on honesty, not perfection. So ask yourself this: what truth have you been swallowing lately? Where have you been saying, "I'm good," when you're not? Where are you pretending that something doesn't bother you just to avoid the discomfort of being honest? Start there. Start small. Say the thing. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart pounds, even if it feels messy. Because every time you tell the truth, your truth, you chip away at the walls you've built between yourself and the life you actually want. A life where your needs are acknowledged. A life where you're not constantly performing. A life that feels real and rooted and aligned. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your fake smile. You owe yourself a life of truth. And yes, that means some people won't like it. That's okay. Not everyone deserves access to the real you, but the ones who do, they'll be drawn to you in a deeper way. Because real always recognizes real. Your truth will attract people who can meet you there, but you've got to be willing to go first. No more shrinking, no more pretending, no more swallowing pain just to keep things neat. Let people feel uncomfortable. Let people adjust. You're not here to carry the emotional burden of everyone else's comfort. You're here to live fully, to speak boldly, to be seen completely. Stop being afraid of your own truth, because when you start honoring how you actually feel, that's when your life begins to feel like your own again. That's when the weight lifts. That's when peace shows up. Not the false peace that comes from avoiding conflict, but the real kind. The kind that comes from knowing you didn't betray yourself today. And that is worth everything.